there's not many in this group that would have actually lost a test to the Wallabies.
Wow.
So they, you got to go back to 2020 for the last time that they lost to them.
Has he had too much rugby? I'm trying to think, okay, how many games have they played? And I look at Fabian Holland and I wonder whether that's why he's not playing, because they think he might have had too much.
He's not throwing massive dummies and being charismatic like Artie is. He's an old school tough guy. And I really don't have an issue with a guy like that being captain of the All Blacks, because you need someone out there to be intimidating.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, welcome to it. The All Blacks wrap up this part of their test season. Saturday night, Perth. It's a hell of a tough place to go and play. 2019, they put 40 points on us over there. I think they've only beaten us once since then. Probably can't win the Rugby Championship, but equally important for this team at this point in time, I believe, to win back-to-back games in this Rugby Championship, because we've won one, we've lost one, we've won one, we've lost one. Changes, and plenty of them, to Scott Robertson's run on 15 and 23. And joining us, our good mate from Radio New Zealand, I believe the most trusted and respected sports journo in the country, is Jamie Wall. Jamie, I messaged you yesterday immediately afterwards and gave you a stat which said there's only 7 in the starting 15 that started against Argentina at Cordoba. There's 12 out of the 23. Now, that's just a number, and it's just, we can interpret this in a number of ways. Obviously there's injuries and abstentions, and we're trying to get strength and depth. I get all that. But is that alarming to you to hear that straight off the off or not?
Yeah, I've had a good think about this, and it's a good number you bring up. And I also saw another number by our good friend Jason Pine on Twitter yesterday, saying that I think there's 43 players have been used this year.
That's Steve Hansen numbers, isn't it?
And so I think that what we're seeing is the overhaul that we all kind of expected to happen last year, and it's finally happening now. My thoughts on it are that, like they were last year, why didn't you do it last year when you had a bit of leeway around results and things? Although I do really understand Scott Robertson's response to that, which was, well, we're the All Blacks, we have to win all these games.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give us the best opportunity to do that. I suppose, we're sitting here expecting them to be able to do both at the same time, and this is it, because they really do need to win this game this weekend.
You agree with me on that?
Absolutely, because like you said, they've gone win-loss, and not just losses, but really poor performances.
Yeah, you're right.
As well.
And we're talking Buenos Aires and Wellington here, people. Okay?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that in order to put a stop to that, they really need to string 2 good performances together in a row. And I think what they have been good at this year has been closing games out, the ones that they've won. And there's a common thread through a lot of them. The first French test, the third French test, the win over the Springboks at Eden Park, and the win over the RGs in Cordoba as well, is that they found themselves in a position in the second half where they had an opposition coming back at them, and they found a way to score a try at a really important point in the second half. And that's a big step up from last year,
when we couldn't score in the last 20 minutes games. Yeah, right. Okay.
So I guess in terms of like a building block, it's a really important one to have. And what we need to see is be able to see them do it 2 weeks in a row. We did see
against a quality opponent, right?
We did see it in the French series, to be fair, which was a good start, because it was like, okay, cool, all the sort of bits are here. And now we need to see them do it consistently. And you mentioned the players, and there's probably more injury than form going on in there.
There's a long list of unavailable.
But there are definitely some form-based
Well, let's
selections.
talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
Balance what you've just said with the fact that traditionally an All Black side wins and those players get a chance to go again.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point you make, and because we are seeing some form changes in this one, and that was, I would say, at least one of the guys who's been replaced this week had a very good game on the weekend.
Name?
Billy Proctor. And no, he didn't run for 100 metres and score a couple of tries and things. But I'll ask you this. How many times did you hear Joseph Akuso Sualii's name get mentioned on the weekend.
And the answer to that is that he was silenced by Billy Proctor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the conversation we've had about Proctor, which is, okay, what's his role here? Like, what's he there to do? And we were told it was primarily a defensive one, and that he works very well with Scott Barrett on defence because they both play in the same Super Rugby team. And he managed to shut down a guy that we've been hearing a lot about in the last year, a guy that's cost Australian rugby how many millions of dollars, and has shown that he was able to make the switch from league to union and be a real game changer like that.
Yeah.
And he did nothing on Saturday night. And so I'll give Billy Proctor credit.
Plus, let's also give him credit for a beautiful pass to Caleb, which put Caleb outside his man. Okay, so he did do I don't know whether it was the best game that we've seen him play, but there was one that did surprise me, given the fact that I thought, okay, has he had too much rugby? And I'm trying to think, okay, how many games have they played? And I look at Fabian Holland and I wonder whether that's why he's not playing, because they think he might have had too much. Having said that, these guys get a big break now for a few weeks. But with Proctor in that combination, the queer thing to me is Quinn Tupaia comes in, but it's not his position.
Yeah.
So again,
and it's off the back of him playing in another position that's not his position on the weekend.
Yeah.
But I think, to be fair, Scott Robertson was asked about this yesterday, and he said that he had, when he'd been coming off the bench, he had been playing centre a lot this year. I think he's good enough. Like, he's clearly a utility player. I thought he was a decent shout to actually start on the wing this weekend because of what he did on Saturday night. And I thought, hey, well, here's another solution that's just kind of been found to a problem that we've talked about this year about the wingers. And it's like, hey, there he is.
Maybe it's him, yeah.
Maybe it's him. Maybe he'll get another go at some point this year, because I like what I saw. Well, I think everyone did. But for him to come in at centre, it's, again, Robertson said it was to do with workload. I'm not sure how much of that I believe, given that he's a back. Yeah, he does get through quite a lot of physical work. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. It's a 3-week break from now on.
Conrad and Ma'a played a hell of a lot of consecutive tests, remember, okay? So
Yeah, that's right. And, I mean, there's plenty of other guys in that team who have played consecutive tests. I believe, how many Artie's started and finished most of them. Yeah. And that's off the back of a 14-game Super Rugby Pacific season. So he's on track to be playing the most games out of any professional rugby player.
I think he's played 22 so far this year or something crazy like that.
Yeah, so he's on, and I can see him being picked for every test.
Oh, God, yes, for the Grand Slam test. Yeah, it has to be, yeah.
So in terms of like workload, it feels like it's sort of one case for one person, one case for another. I wouldn't have minded if he just come out and just said, like, no, we just want to see how Quinn goes at centre. This is a game, we've retained the Bledisloe Cup. Why not? Because he's definitely good enough. I think there's definitely a case for him to be there.
Okay, well, explain this to me then, Jamie. So he's at 13. I don't want to go back to that fast that was Goodhue, Leonard Brown in 2019, where they were 12 and 13 or 13 and 12, and then the next year we were told, we had them in the wrong positions, and now 13 and 12 and 12 and 13. So you've got Rico was a centre, he goes to the wing, he gets dropped out, he comes back in. Tupaia is pretty much a 12, who's now played on the wing, who's now 13. Lester Whanganuku, who I think most of us thought probably would come back into the midfield, he's now on the wing. So again, what is it? Is this the strength and depth utility players, and we have to have guys that can cover 3 or 4 positions? Or do we actually need to settle on a midfield combo that we still haven't kind of quite got right yet?
Yeah, but I mean, how long have we been having this conversation for?
It's 5 or 6 years, mate.
I'd say 10 years, because since Nono and Smith left.
Okay.
There hasn't been anyone, even when Sonny Bill was here, there hasn't been a sort of consistent pairing going forward. And to be honest, I think just given the way that the modern game is, and if you look at the way Super Rugby teams operate, that's not unusual, to have guys sort of moving around in that position. It's an attrition heavy position as well. They get injured more often than anyone else as well. And Billy Proctor has had some serious injury problems as well. So there is a little bit of truth in that.
So is Tupaia.
And Tupaia as well. I mean, although that was, one blatant act of thuggery that I'm sure he's looking forward to every time he plays against the Wallabies, because victory would taste pretty sweet.
Yeah, so much better, yeah.
So I think that there's definitely a case of, like, I feel like Billy Proctor could be a bit hard done by here, but I also feel like Tupaia's definitely earned his spot. And I'm intrigued to see how he goes at 13.
Loose forwards is also another contestable one, isn't it? Because I thought when we were standing sideline at North Harbour and talking to Wallace Satiti there, I thought he was cement, mate. I didn't think that we weren't not going to see him start every test from now. And then Lakai comes in. And Lakai has been there or thereabouts on the fringe. But I think this is the first test he starts, I read, something like that. Which that's surprising to me. I kind of feel like he's played before, but he obviously hasn't. He played really well against France last year, but he obviously came off the bench. So again, is Satiti hard done by? And have we actually figured this out, given that Tupu goes back to lock? Have we figured out this loose forward combination?
I think we all think that Peter Lakai started that match because he came on after like a minute.
Okay, so
that's why, and he played most of that game. But yeah, this is interesting because Scott Barrett, it's not to do with the loose forwards, it's about Scott Barrett coming back in, and sort of what you then do with Tupou Vai becomes the kind of question mark about how you make up the forward pack. And
Can I just pause you for a second there and ask, because we get a lot of comments about this and a lot of people criticising Scott Barrett. I'm a real big Scott Barrett fan, and I don't know whether he's the Scott Barrett this year that he has been, say, last year or something, but I still have faith in the fact that he is a world-class player for us, and if he's fit, he has to play. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do, and I think that there's a bit of kind of Ruben Thornism going on.
Okay, I get you. I get you. Let's go back to the early 2000s, people, if you need to understand this argument, okay?
Yeah, and I think it's just because, and kind of like Proctor, he's not running up the field with ball in hand like Satiti is. He's not this fresh-faced youngster like Holland is. And yeah, he's not as charismatic as Ardie is. He's not throwing massive dummies and being charismatic like Ardie is. He's an old school tough guy. And I really don't have an issue with a guy like that being captain of the All Blacks, because you need someone out there to be intimidating other players and other teams, and he does that. I think he's managed to iron out the bits that are getting him sent off.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a serious conversation to be had, and it's a fair one, about whether Ardie or Scott Barrett should be captain. But Scott Barrett definitely plays in the team. He's there. Yes, we have exceptional depth at lock right now.
Well, we're developing it, aren't we?
Well, I think right now, if the fact that you can have injuries and then have Tuipulotu coming back.
Yeah, that's actually a bonus, isn't it?
We have. I feel like there's more depth there than most other countries have, other than perhaps the Springboks. So, yeah, I think that there's a conversation to be had about the captaincy, but I don't think there's any conversation to be had about him being in the team.
Okay. Going back to my first opening point there about, I just believe this is a really important test to win. And so I get in that kind of quandary. I don't want to experiment with games like this. I don't believe playing this Australian side in Perth, given the fact that we've been win one, lost one, win one, lost one, and also that landmark loss in Wellington has to be a starting point from there, that you every game I want to see incremental improvement from there. And so I don't want to fanny around thinking, okay, we can lose this game because we've won the Bledisloe Cup. That thinking is just ridiculous to me, right? So how important is it to win? And do you believe that along the same lines as I think?
Well, if you're talking about numbers, you kind of have to remember that the All Blacks are on the verge of their biggest ever winning streak against the Wallabies.
I read that in your thing yesterday. That was a hell of a streak. Yeah, 11 in a row or something.
It'll be 11 in a row if they win on the weekend.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that is sort of, I think the Wallabies are historically good for a win every 4.5 tests. So that, they've more than doubled that. So perhaps that's come into the thinking as well, that this group, there's not many in this group that would have actually lost a test to the Wallabies.
Wow.
So they, you got to go back to 2020 for the last time that they lost to them. And it's not a normal thing. They're probably not a team that they fear. All due respect to the Wallabies, who have made some massive improvements and are looking really good. But this is a different proposition to playing against the Springboks, going to Twickenham and playing against England. And I think perhaps maybe that's why they can afford to take this attitude into this test. McKenzie
at 10. Let's finish on that one. And again, another opportunity for him. I just feel that it's one position that we just need to get sorted and have a number one guy. And I still feel that we're in that thing where we don't really know if he plays like he did when he played against Ireland. I keep going on about this. He played against Ireland last year. I thought he was magnificent in that game, especially the second half. He played All Black Test number 10 rugby.
Absolutely.
He did it last weekend as well. If he can put that hat on and go out there, I think with a guy like him, everything unfolds in front of him. After 50 or 60 minutes, there's going to be room. But we talked to Steve Gordon about this yesterday as well. I just want to see him tight to start with and doing all the right things and mistake-free, error-free, and nothing at all that I call super rugby. I just want to see him play test match rugby.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because he did start in that first Bledisloe Cup test last year when the All Blacks ran out to, what was it, 28.
And then they came back at us though, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, it does work when you start him. And you mentioned that test against Ireland. Also, I mean, he's there because Bowden's injured. Right. If Bowden was fit, he would be playing. I feel like that's not in any sort of debate here. And so, therefore, what other options do you have? You're probably not going to put Love there because he's never...
Well, people are, again, we get a lot of comments to that. Put him in there. Would you throw him into this test match?
No, absolutely
See,
not.
I wouldn't either.
No.
I can understand
McKenzie has played 50-odd tests, and he started a lot of them at 10. You want a guy who started at 10. I mean, if he was hurt, I'd put Scott Barrett at 10 ahead of Ruben Love. But
wow, why?
Because he's got the experience. Love hasn't done it yet. Like, I need to see enough. I need to see more out of him as a test match player before I'd entrust him with a number 10 jersey. At least a few starts at 15 and have him do some. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I believe he can do it. Like, but I don't think the All Blacks ever want to be in a position where they're just sort of rolling the dice on someone.
No, it's not in that position.
And don't get me wrong, like, Love had some great moments at 10 for the Hurricanes this year and really turned their season around. But this is a different story. This is test match. And yes, I know what I said about the Wallabies and, you know, how they're probably not fearing it. But every mistake turns into a calamity in a test match. And you can't have a guy out there that's sort of never been in a situation before and is learning as he goes. I feel like he needs time at fullback. You know, maybe if they move Jordan to the wing, you know, that's a potential sort of back three combination for next year. Okay. So I want to see that before he plays at 10.
Let's end on the fact that we haven't mentioned South Africa versus Argentina because I don't think for a second that South Africa aren't winning that game, and I don't think we win the Rugby Championship. I haven't even thought for a minute this week that we're winning this Rugby Championship because to do it, obviously we have to win. Well, they have to lose, don't they? South Africa have to lose because of the points differential and things. Can you see that happening?
It's unlikely, but then again, I didn't see them losing at Ellis Park to the Wallabies. I mean, Argentina's given them a massive favour because they've essentially handed them another home game up in London at Twickenham because I know that there's probably far more Springbok fans willing to pay money than Pumas fans in London.
Yeah, I mean, there's a hell of a lot of Saffers who live up there too.
And so, I mean, they go in as deserved favourites and, you know, even if they were playing in Buenos Aires or they'll be favourites anyway, simply because of the way that they've been playing. Yeah, they had that shock at Ellis Park and they were beaten by an All Black side that probably played their best game of the year at Eden Park. But they will be coming into this as a team that has played finals before, that has played these big games and knows how to win them, and is playing with sort of a new style and new confidence. Be interested to see, you know, just sort of what sort of team that they roll out because I feel like Rassie Erasmus, one of the cool things about when he was here was he named that team for the second test, changed his entire backline, but he has the capacity to do it. Like he has the South African public were like, wow, there he goes, he's at it again. Yeah. Imagine if Scott Robertson was able to do that. We're sitting here talking about a centre getting replaced by a guy who hasn't played centre yet. And right. You know, he rolls out. Whereas if Rassie does it, he's a genius. Exactly. And so I suppose that's what happens when you get two World Cups in the Absolutely. And also that the fact that he's just sort of got this image of a guy that's consistently changing him. Because if you and I could sit here for probably an hour and talk about what the proper full strength Springbok team is, and would come up with potentially two different teams. Yeah, I'd say two. Yeah. And so I think that's what Scott Robertson's eventually aiming for, and we're starting to see with these changes that he's making, heading. That he's getting that team to head in that sort of direction. Leave us a comment. As always, we really appreciate it. DSPN.